Good evening, guys. Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. This is the Devil's Advocate Show. I'm Reese hosting it. You may know me from London Lowdown. This is Mark, and we've got William joining me again. Good evening, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, good man. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. It's been a little while. I hope you're both well.
Yeah, it has been. Thanks very much for asking. Long day. William, how you doing?
I am bloody wrecked and bloody hot, but we'll power on through.
Mate. All I can say is, as long as you get a bit of cool down this evening, a bit of a breeze, that's all that matters. But judging by the weather you're having, I doubt that. I absolutely doubt that. I'm just going to come at the comments because obviously there were apologies to anyone that was originally watching the show this evening. Amy did have some broadband issues, which unfortunately does happen. But at least we've got the show now, so hopefully we can get Amy on for the next show. So I'm just going to come to a few people that's in the live chat already. So we've got Rory, Evening Pal, Ankit was here as well from Chelsea Fan TV. And obviously Victoria's Secrets was here, back at 5 to 8. So we're just going to push on. Obviously, the original show was due to go ahead at 8 o'clock. So I'm just going to reiterate, it was just internet issues, but we've got it back. And good evening, Keen. Hope you're well, mate. So we're just going to go over a few topics tonight. One in particular is yesterday's game, the pre-season match between Manchester United and Derby. For me, it was absolutely brilliant watch in terms of the highlight. Obviously was 17 youth academy graduates played yesterday. That for me is just euphoric as a Man United fan. It's deeply rich in our club. Our history stems back from 1937 in terms of the youth academy, that long run. 17 youth academy graduates in one game is absolutely fantastic. Mark, as a Man United fan, how just the number 17, how does that feel to you?
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I mean, look, we always want to talk about the United DNA and our long, rich history of bringing through academy graduates, and it is quite an unbelievable stat, in all honesty. And I think it's been, I don't know how long now since we've not played a youth academy graduate within the team, and I think that record, I can't remember what it is, but it stems back years and years and years. Quite an incredible thing. It was good yesterday. I caught glimpses of it. There was some really good performances. I thought Mengi was good at the back. He played, didn't he? Yes, he did. Shoretiri, I thought he was excellent. Really impressed with him. I've seen him obviously a few times. Just looks really sort of quick and confident on the ball, and that's what you want as sort of like an inside forward. Palistri, I thought he was great. There's been a lot of talks about him potentially leaving, going on loan somewhere, and look, we've got obviously a plethora of players now that can play in that position, and I don't think it would be silly for any of those players to go out on loan, because I think that we've got a lot to fall back on, and I think that's obviously a very good thing. But yeah, please listen, you have to take these results with a pinch of salt, but it's always nice to get a win regardless.
I absolutely agree with that. Just before I come to William, because obviously he is a resident Arsenal fan of the channel, I'm just going to say one thing. No, I'm not Amy. I'm not blonde. I don't have long hair. I'm Reese. I'm a totally different thoroughbred. Amy's a much better host, but she's also a good one of the channel. But hopefully we can see her again soon. But thanks for the banter, Rach. That always makes me smile. We haven't forgotten. Don't worry. We haven't forgotten. William, I'm going to come to you in a second, but I'm just going to read out this comment from Victoria's Secrets. It's great to see many young players getting game time, but realistically, how many of them will be regularly in the matchday squads this season? Interesting question. I'll feed that back in when I speak to William. I'll let William answer this question first. So, William, as an Arsenal fan, obviously, some plenty good young talent from your team. But in terms of the Man United perspective, was there any? I don't know if you watched the game, but is there any young players in that team that impressed you?
I didn't really watch the game, but I did watch a bit of the highlights just so I could see what was happening. Shoratire's assist to Palestri was absolutely beautiful. The way that he just waited for the right time in the pass for the defender to push on so that he could play the time, and the ability of Palestri to just confidently take it around the keeper was just. I was very impressed by them two youngsters. And honestly, do you expect to see them get much game time? No, it might be good to get a loan. But what it is good for is for building their confidence and showing that, look, this is the ability that you have to reach to be a Man United player. And to actually have said that, yeah, I've played this game. It may have only been preseason. I've gotten this appearance. I'm not going to let this slip. I'm going to want to reach out, grab my chances every time you've got. And the true ones will make it, the true ones won't. You know, you might only get 2 or 3, but there's definitely some talent in that team that
Absolutely.
could make it through.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Before I come to you again, Mark, just on the back of Victoria's Secret's question, I'm just going to say good evening to Ankit from Chelsea Fan TV. Yeah, it's a Man United overload. It's me, Mark, the resident Man United fans, and William below us, who's an Arsenal fan. But you say anything about Man United in relation to William, he's always got something, because rival fans always have something to say.
It's not even that. I just like to talk about football in general and see how my opinion compares against yours as a proper fan.
Absolutely, that's what we all want. Unless something totally negative comes out, then we're up shit's creek. But that's not going to happen tonight. But on the back of this question, Mark, how many of these young players will regularly be in the matchday squads this season? Do you have a rough estimate, or do you think it's similar to William?
Yeah, I think, look, this is always healthy competition, isn't it? That's what you want in a squad. This has always been a headache for whoever has been there. You know, we've just talked about the United DNA and all the academy graduates coming through. And I think that's only a healthy thing. You've got to remember, as a young player, you haven't really got that fear factor. You're going to take your opportunities. Pre-season is a particular time for that. You know, Andres Pereira, he's missed a 10 out of 10 in pre-season. Unfortunately, falls by the wayside when the season starts. And you know, these kids should have that opportunity and should take it as well as they can. And hopefully, it gives Ollie even more of a problem, you know, going into the season. That's what it's all about. You know, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to build your experience somewhere, and hopefully these players will, you know, some will make it, some will probably go on loan or get sold. That's just the way it is, and I hope that we will see. I mean, who knows what we're going to see this season? Judging on sort of the signings that we may be getting in soon. You know, that we're going to have a very good squad, and it is going to be a struggle for these young players. But we know that if there are any injuries, because that happens, if there are any fatigue, because that happens, we saw that last season, these players might be able to come in and actually do a good job.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think you're completely spot on there. There is the circumstance that players will get moved on, they won't get moved on, they'll be kept. They'll be sold or even loaned out with a view to a potential move elsewhere permanently. I, on the grounds of it, think there will be a few that will be moved on. Just going to come to a comment of 2 players in particular that impressed me yesterday. Was Hannibal and Garner. These 2 were fantastic yesterday, and I'm hoping that Garner sticks around. I do think he's going to go on loan again, though, probably to a lower league club within the Premier League. But in terms of Hannibal, like, I don't want him to go on loan. I think he can provide us competition in that starting 11. He's got the talent for it. But in terms of other players within the game, there's one other player that yesterday really impressed me. He doesn't particularly shy away from performance, but he's just never really done enough for Man United when he has played, is Tahith Chong. When he has played, he hasn't particularly done well, and it's not his fault. There's times where not last season, but the season before, where he did play in a cup game and then he wasn't seen for months on end. Then he played again. He was expected to light up, and it's not his fault. He's a young player. These things happen. But what I do think is, like, because he's now away at Birmingham City, he's away at the Championships, a 46 league game season, plenty of game time, plenty of minutes. build himself up, and we'll see what happens. I hope he comes back and does really well. He's always a player that I've always wanted to do well, but with football, you can never be so sure. Going back to a comment by Keane, Andreas is the pre-season Paul Scholes. Touching back to what Mark said, Mark literally did some of. He gives you a 10 out of 10, but after that, he literally goes head into the sand where you just don't see him. You don't see it enough, and I really don't know why, because there's games where this man literally turns up and he will score an absolute banger. I remember the long range effort against Southampton. That tore things apart. Like, it was impressive to watch, but other than that, he doesn't really live up. So I don't know what to expect from Andreas Pereira. I think he's going to be sold, but I don't know. On the back of Andreas Pereira, I'll come to you, William, first. Do you see anything from Andreas Pereira that convinces that he could be a Man United player, or even be a player in the Premier League?
Anytime I've seen him, he's just, it's been not very impressive. I feel like it'll be his time to move on. When you look at the depth in the Man United squad, I can see him going somewhere like Spain, to be honest, where it'll suit him just a little bit more, give him a bit more time on the ball. Just, he can show that he's actually Brazilian and not just get constantly pressed, where in England where it's a bit tougher.
Yeah.
Look, I think it will be time for him to move on. He's had enough chances in a way.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and in all fairness, I don't think you're wrong either. Mark, what about yourself when it comes to Pereira? What do you think is his future? Do you think he has a future at this club?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a shame really. I really enjoyed watching Andreas Pereira, sort of shine through and be the next sort of big prospect. And he went to Valencia, was it Valencia? And he was actually very, very good in the Spanish league. And you hit the nail on the head, Will. He seems to thrive a little bit more in that type of league. I mean, he struggled a bit in Italy too. In Italy, whilst it's not the same as the Premier League, it is a lot more physical, I think, than some others. And I think he struggles with that. And it is a shame. Look, people, we see it all the time. People would take the piss and that sort of thing. But I just think he's just been a bit unfortunate. And to be honest, with the midfield we've got, really, even though we need one or two, maybe, I just can't see Andreas Pereira fitting in now. I mean, he would never get in front of Bruno, not Pogba, not Van der Beek, not Matic or any of them, quite honestly. And I know obviously he's a very different player, but you know what I mean. Yeah, he's sort of 7th or 8th in the list. You know, we're talking about Jesse Lingard potentially staying, maybe, and consequently, if he's in, then you can't see Andreas getting anywhere. So it is really unfortunate. And honestly, I want him to thrive in another league. I really do, because I think there's a lot of talent there that's just been unfortunately missed at United.
Yeah, definitely. Before we push along to the man himself, Jesse Lingard, I'm just going to say, as much as I would like Gilmour to take the next Scholes tag, with all due respect, no. Like, Gilmour is a quality player, but no, don't compare my legend with Gilmour. Just please don't. Lingard, at the moment, he's a bit of an interesting topic with Man United fans. At times he's lived up to his potential. At times he hasn't. He's a bit of a hit and a miss, can go cold. There's moments where he doesn't score for months on end. Then he has a purple patch and he's absolutely fantastic.
I might have lost him. Oh, here he is. He's back.
Oh, thank God I'm still here. I'm hoping this does not happen again. If so, I might need... If in the sense we may need Keen to jump on shortly as well, just in case my internet does decide to bolt me. I don't know what the hell's going on. But I'm just going to go back to Lingard. He has a bit of a hot cold. There is a topic where, is he the player that Man United actually need? Or can we get something out of him? He does have talent there. It's pretty obvious. He does have talent, and it was seen at West Ham what he can do. 9 goals and 6 assists in 16 games. It's good numbers. But is he going to do anything at Manchester United long term? That's the question. And in all respect, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But what's your thoughts on that? Because there is rumours he's going to get a new contract. I think it's a 3-year deal and it's 130k a week. Did you take the gamble?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, with Jesse? I mean, poor young Jesse, getting on a little bit now. He's just been, again, unfortunate. Listen, it's not just at West Ham where we've seen him thrive. He has some incredible talent. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We've seen that at United on several occasions. I think he just had a very, very difficult year by all accounts, and that can affect your mentality hugely. We're all different. We'll sort of take things on board very differently, and we don't know what was truly going on. Now, he was excellent at West Ham, and that's exactly. I was so proud because again, I always wish our players on loan, ex-players, whoever, to go on and really sort of hit the ground running, and that's exactly what he did. 9 goals and 6 assists. Did you say? I mean,
something like that in 16 games. Yeah.
In 16 games, that's incredible. Yeah. That's probably better than what Bruno was getting at the time, right? So that's quite some stuff. And look, if he signs a new contract, fair enough. Look, I'm not gonna be disappointed with that. But as I mentioned to you earlier, will he get the game time? I don't see it happening really. Again, he might feel a bit part role for cup games like Mata does. And I don't think it would be a bad option at all. I think with Jesse, he's probably come back. He's probably had a conversation with Ole, and looks hungry and ready. And if that's the case, then he's obviously got a point to prove, and he could be a good asset to the team. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, what I have seen though is there were it was posted by the likes of Sky Sports News and all that, and the Athletic saying that he is in the plans for next season. Solskjaer has told him he is in the plans. What those plans are, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what happens realistically. I just wanted to ask William, what's your thoughts on Lingard? Because I know, obviously, as an attacking player, he does offer a different dimension. I don't see him as a creative number 10, but what I do see him as is a dynamic player that can cause problems by splitting the defences and then allowing other players to drift in. So what would you take on him?
To be honest, I think giving him a new contract isn't exactly the worst idea, because just because you give him a new contract doesn't mean you can't sell him in a year or so. It just increases his sell-on value for the club. So, and after the season that he's had this year, it's good that it's good business by the club, even if you don't want to necessarily look at the business side.
Yeah.
I think he really could have a role in United. You never know. He might even have a chance. I know people are saying because Rashford is out, obviously, for the first 2 months, you've got Martial playing on the left. There's no reason why he couldn't try and start Lingard there if Martial isn't performing, and if he sticks up to the same standards with better players around him, that he couldn't do a job out there. And he can offer something very different than the likes of Martial or even a Rashford can up there.
That's a very good point, Mark. Just on the touch of that, obviously Williams made a very good point there. He has mentioned Marcus Rashford. He is finally going to get surgery to get some of these issues dealt with. On the back of the comments there about Jesse Lingard playing potentially as a left winger or even as a right winger, which he did do when Solskjaer first took over as caretaker. He played in that role. Do you see that, or would you use him as a backup 10? Because there are options there like that. That is a very good point, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the real benefit from Jesse. You don't really know what he is, but he can play across the whole front three and just behind. And I think that's a useful trait to have in any player, really. Even again, like John O'Shea back in the day, was able to play in midfield, defensive midfielder, right back, and centre back, and it's always nice to. Sorry.
And also a great goal.
Yeah, exactly. So he did all right, didn't he? So it's always nice to have that versatility, and Rashford's out. You're absolutely right. Totally forgot, and it's about time he got that shoulder sorted. And but I don't think it's really going to have an impact. I still believe that he will be sort of within the squad, filling bit parts and potentially in cup games, because you've got to remember we're probably going to get Sancho over the line. Martial, I really hope, comes back and actually starts hitting the ground running from the off. We'll see. And then you've got still players like James and a few others. So listen, I think actually, William, really good point, bro. Signing a new contract is very good for the club. And I think that they would, I think that they've been smarter in the last few years. And by getting to sign a new contract with how well he's done at West Ham, I think he's actually a smart move. And probably they will look to maybe move him on in a couple of years. If not, he's had a great season and we've got a good player on our hands.
Yeah, because there is the fact is that he's not 30 years old yet. He's going to be 29. Obviously, as Victoria's Secrets has mentioned, he's got about 29 years old. We could still get 20, 30 million for him, give or take. You could still make a bit of money off him if you do decide to sell him on. So that's a good point. One thing I wanted to ask is, you've mentioned Martial, and I was going to bring up two players in particular, Van de Beek and Martial. Two different types of players. Obviously, you got Mike. Obviously, Van de Beek's just done his first season as a Man United player. Martial's now going into his sixth or seventh. It's getting interesting in terms of, is this his last chance? Is it just a hit or miss season? Not entirely sure. I don't think he's a number 9. I think he's a left winger. But he just happens to do a decent job as a striker. I think he's more of a winger. But do you think he's on his last chance, or do you think he can kick on? And I'll go to you first, William.
To be honest, I think he's just very lucky that Marcus Rashford chose to have his shoulder surgery, and the fact that they needed someone that he actually gets this chance again, because it feels like for the last 2 or 3 seasons you've been saying, is this his last chance? Is this the time he's going to come good? And I'm honestly in the belief that he'll do well in some games, but he just won't show up enough, and that at the end of next season, then he'll be gone.
Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I think he's lucky as well. On his day, Martial is one of the best dribblers I've seen, if I'm brutally honest. And I know that might seem extreme, but his centre of gravity is absolutely ridiculous, and he can run rings around a lot of players. My problem with Martial is, for some reason, and I've said this before, that he just seems to, as you said, William, not really turn up for games, and there always seems to be this unrest that's created when a new player comes in. Cavani, Ibrahimovic, Lukaku. I just feel that it's 2 or 3, 4 times too many now for that to not be a problem, and that for me is a problem. And I've been saying this on All for United many times. I think I've said this for you guys before. I genuinely think it's bloody lucky that Rashford's injured, because I read something months and months ago that Ollie, a bit like he was with Jesse actually, he sort of gave him a few months to kind of prove his worth. Lingard at the time couldn't do that, and Martial's kind of done the same really during his whole stint really with Ollie. And I feel that Ollie's quite ruthless, and I think that he sort of earmarks people to say, look, you've got this time, and in his head he knows that he's going to look to move a player on, and I do feel that Martial will be one of those. He's got another season now to prove himself, and I really want him to do that. But I think that he's probably going to get moved on in the next year or so.
Yeah, I understand that. For me personally, he's a player that I like. He does have the traits to be a good player, but there are some unfortunate issues there that do seem to appear, and the one thing that does appear is the lack of, when it gets competition, he doesn't seem to thrive off it. He seems to regress, and as a player, you should want to be up against competition, because it makes you a better player, and it is quite unfortunate. I'm going to bring up one comment which I think is very important in terms of Martial. It's from Shane. Good evening, mate. Hope you're good. Martial has lost a yard of pace, so 1v1 out wide has regressed, but his close control and link-up play is still very good. I do agree with that. Probably the biggest reason why I think he's definitely a 9 and not a winger. Okay, so if you had to divine his position, he is much better coming in from the left-hand side into the middle. So would you say he's still a definite number 9, or do you think he's just or a left winger, or do you think he's just a mixture of he likes to play in that left channel and then come at the central position to get a goal? Like, how do you define him?
Is this for me, buddy?
I'll start with you, Mark. Yeah.
Sorry. I do agree with that to a certain extent. I actually was going to mention that I think, other than Greenwood, I think Martial is actually statistically one of our best finishers, and he will, get some really sort of difficult, difficult angled goals and that sort of thing. And I think he's one of our best finishers. I don't really see him as a left winger. I think his link-up player, if you want to talk about a defensive forward, if that's a thing, a bit like Firmino, everyone wants to bang on about that. He probably is, and I think he holds the ball up well. His link-up play is great, as Shane's alluded to. But he's not a number 9. He's not quite a number 9. He's not got the physical prowess in the box. You talk about headed goals. This is why Rashford really isn't a number 9. He's an inside forward because he does a lot of that sort of wide channel play, but doesn't actually get those poacher goals. Whereas Cavani, totally different, right? So I think he's kind of in the middle of those two, if I'm honest. It's a good option to have again. I just really hope he comes in and proves it this season.
Yeah, I totally get that. On the back of that comment, what about yourself, William?
I understand what he means, because obviously we have a player that plays as a striker that constantly is out on the left. However, is probably a little bit better at goal scoring before last season and before now. But honestly, it just feels like he's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. Really, it's just he's got some good aspects to his game, but it just never seems to kind of work.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I think that's a very fair comment to make in terms of his overall ability, in terms of what he does. There's 2 comments here from Shane. He's done it in 2 points. I'm just going to quickly read out both. So the first comment is, I think 9, because he gets lost in the game too much out wide, whereas he's forced to be more involved when he plays for the middle. Either way, his off-the-ball movement isn't good enough. But his second point is, but at least as a 9, his link-up makes up for a little. I do agree with Mark, though. He's neither here nor there, but I do think he's more 9 than a winger.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I totally understand that. Yeah, I totally understand that. And then Keane with a bold, but to be fair, I actually think is an accurate prediction. Greenwood will be the best 9 at the club, mark my words. Soon as he gets that headed ability into his game, and I mean like a serious 5 to 10 goals a season from headers, I completely agree. He will be. As soon as he gets that to his game, he's going to be absolutely dangerous. Victoria's Secrets, 2 good seasons out of 6 shows a lack of consistency from Martial. Should sell him. William, you agree? Would you sell based on that? 2 seasons out of 6?
I mean, I think it's a fair comment. I think, as I said before, if Rashford didn't get injured, I think he would be sold. I think it's just because of the depth necessarily on the left side. Yes, I know you can say you can play Jesse Lingard, and yes, he could play, say, Dan James. But you'd argue Martial is kind of a little bit more quality than Dan James, even though I do like Dan James. I'm not going to lie, but he's still very young. I'd still rather Martial out there for United. And I'd start Jesse Lingard on the left instead of him, but at least then you've got number 1, number 2, that the two of them. I know we say Martial doesn't do well under competition, but it means that they can fight for each other's place and push each other a bit more.
Let's hope he doesn't start at the Emirates again, because he might be doing some dances.
He probably will. Let's be honest. He always does.
No doubt. There always will be. So we're going to shift away from Martial, and we're going to move on to the second player of this little topic in question. The second one is Van de Beek. He's had a bit of an interesting season amongst United fans that were begging for him to start, United fans begging for him to get a chance. When he has played, he's not convinced. Has he convinced? Bit of a mixed match player. I don't think he's adapted fully to the league yet, but to be fair, you can't adapt if you don't get a string run of games to show yourself. But on the grounds of that, I do believe he does have a point to prove this season in terms of he has to nail down a position. Is he going to play in a midfield 2? Is he going to play as a 10 back up to Bruno? what do you think? I'm going to come to you first, Mark, as the Manchester United fan, on the grounds of it. What's your view on Van de Beek? Do you think he has a point to prove, or do you think it's a bit too soon to say something on that ground?
You know what? I actually really like Donny van der Beek. I know Greg will hate me for this, but I think he's totally wrong in his viewpoints on him. He is a different kind of player, a very different kind of number 10 to Bruno Fernandes. And let's be honest, without sounding arrogant, not every player is going to come in like Bruno Fernandes and do as well as they have done, okay? You've got to bear in mind that last season, the Dutch league finished very early, a bit like Cavani with PSG, went out with an ACL, and it took him a little while to adapt and come back, okay? But because we were crying out for a number 9, he had to play. Now, with Donny van der Beek, I think that the idea, or at least my idea for United, would be get a holding midfielder in, and then you'd be able to have a mixture of 2 number 10s playing further forward in Donny, Bruno, and Pogba, and they will give you totally different play styles. Okay, now I do think that he needs a bit more time. I really do. He has come from an Ajax system which doesn't quite work at United, and he's hopefully trying to develop to be able to be accommodated into the United team. And I do believe, he's an intelligent player. We saw it in the first game. He got the goal. He was brilliant. We have seen glimpses of some absolute brilliance, but actually I don't think really Ollie has played him to his full potential. I think that if you have 2 players that he can work, because he likes to find the pockets. He likes to receive the ball and move it on, a bit like Paul Scholes, okay? But in order to do that, you need to have another number 8 or 10 around you and someone to be able to shore up the defence. So, listen, I really like Donny. I want him to be given more time. There is absolutely no chance of him going anywhere. And yeah, I do agree. I think this season, it's not a point for him to prove himself. He absolutely has that ability. But I think it will be a point where actually everyone starts going, fucking hell, actually, he's all right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I once compared him. I was on a show and I once compared him to Thomas Muller when Muller was younger. Bit like a Rom Doubt, where he likes to find the space and he can be most effective in those tight spaces, and he can be effective. It's no coincidence his best games. Shout out to the supposed to be host tonight. Shout out to Amy. His best games constantly at Man United have been when he's played with Juan Mata. That type of number 10 is totally different. That's when he's most effective. So I totally agree with that. And I do agree with this comment right here. If we go to a 4-3-3, he will play more. I absolutely agree with that.
100%.
I agree with that. This comment is a bit of an interesting one, obviously, because there were people that were on the back of this last season. I was always on the fence because I wasn't 100% sure. But Victoria's Secrets has said, can't see Donny being given a fair run against by Ollie. It's very obvious that he doesn't rate him. I'll let the boys come to this one in a second, but what I think is I do believe he does rate him. The problem is you look at Cavani, for example. I remember what he said about Cavani. I think it was in January. He said, as he was getting in, I think it was the Everton game when we won 3-1, he's like, we're finally learning how to use Cavani. Because Cavani, he stopped playing in February last year. So he went 8 months without playing a professional game of football. It's going to take him time to build himself up. And you saw in that game, Cavani, he was absolutely destructive against Everton. He destroyed them. Pressing, attack-wise, into positions for a 34-year-old. Amazing. And he's learning how to use them. And those were his exact words. This team is learning how to play off Cavani. So I think that's what he's trying to do with Donny. The problem is the level of opposition he's playing against. It's different styles, whereas in the Eredivisie, he was playing pretty much the same team every week. It was like the same style of play. It was always quick, short passing, looked to dominate the ball. The difference is he played for Ajax, the most dominant team in the league. He had more time on the ball to cement his talent, and especially in Europe as well. He was also in the same level of degree dominating the ball in possession. Now he's coming to a team where they're up against a lot more low block opposition. And I don't particularly think that suits him yet in the role he's asked to do. Give him a full pre-season, and I genuinely think he will cause you problems. What do you think on that? And I'll go to you, William, on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I understand to where he's saying, like, oh, it's obvious that he doesn't rate Donny. That may have been true for last season, but this season is totally new season. They might need a different type of qualities where that Donny would suit it better than other players. I do think that you probably will end up going into a 4-3-3, and you definitely will see him playing a lot more as one of those two players. You never know. If you do that system, you might end up seeing Bruno get dropped a bit more, because if you can imagine, like, Paul Pogba played best as one of the three players in the 4-3-3 with Juventus. So if you had him, if you have the intelligence of Donny, if he starts showing up, it could happen. Now, obviously, that may sound crazy, but this season is a new season. Anything can happen. He won't start at the very start of the season, but he'll definitely get given a few more chances than he was this year. He was definitely brought in very slowly, and I believe that was part of a plan, because, I mean, you've seen other players come from other leagues and come into the Premier League and people write him off way too early. I remember Fabinho, when he started at Liverpool, everyone was calling him a massive flop, and now look, he's probably one of the best DMs in the league. I think it's very easy to get on that bandwagon, but you can see the intelligence in him. And ironically, you say that he looked best probably next to Juan Mata, because whenever I've seen him, he reminds me very much of Juan Mata.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got that intelligence that he can spot a few passes before they've even happened. He seems to have that vision. So if you can get him firing, then he's God help.
I definitely think so. I agree, because I don't see him as a 15 to 20 goal goal scoring midfielder. I don't see him as that. I see him as somebody who will play into the channels, will pick the ball up, he'll run with it, he'll progress. He's very good at progressing the ball, especially with the close control that the Dutch always employ at youth academy level. He will give us that extra dimension. So I do see that. In terms of his role in a 4-3-3, what do you see him doing, Mark? Do you think he'll be more of a progressor? Do you think he'll be used to create? But box to box, what do you think he'll be used as, or do you think he'll be used in a totally different way?
Well, generally speaking, when you play a 4-3-3, obviously you have your defensive midfielder in front of the back four, and then you'll have a progressive number 10 or number 8, like Bruno, that sort of carries the ball a little bit more, and then you'll have another kind of number 8 that complements that by having someone that can pick up those pockets and have a bit of creativity, a bit like Jesse Lingard to a certain degree, sort of getting in those pockets, trying to link up play a little bit more, and that's exactly what he is. So, listen, in regards to Victoria's Secret's comments, I'm really sorry, but I disagree with that. In regards to the obvious, he doesn't rate him. Something that Ollie's done to stable the ship over the last 3 years is completely change the process. Now, the reason why we haven't bought players is because the Glazers don't want to spend the money. Okay, but he has transformed how we go about recruitment, and now we've got John Murto and that sort of thing. And it has been a long process, and I totally don't believe Ollie being he comes across as this lovely, funny guy in interviews, but I think he's a bit of a cold-hearted bastard sometimes, and I cannot imagine that he would be okay with United signing a player without the vision and having a look at him and seeing what he provides to the team. And honestly, I really hope, again, this season he proves me right, because I thoroughly believe that that's what he's going to be there to do next season.
I agree. I was just trying to find how many appearances he had last season. I think it was around 20, 25 appearances overall, but most of them were as a substitute. One comment I'm going to come to, because don't worry, I know for a fact it's not going to happen next year. This one, I hope no more McFred in the 4-3-3. I can tell you now, and I'm willing to stake my life on this. This will not happen next season. Next year, Fred will be used as a rotation as an advanced central midfielder. He will not be used in a defensive midfield role, similar to how he was used for Brazil at the Copa America that they sadly bottled the final. It'll be like this. You will not see Fred in that position. The way he played as an advanced midfielder in that system employed by TT, that's what I see for United next year. And Ollie has came out like as a, he has said in a comment, like he did say that he was looking to do this. It's not like a fixed plan, but I don't see him being used as a defensive midfielder. I don't see it. I don't see it happening at all. And just on the back of it, Victoria's Secrets, it would be a sad and boring world if everyone had the same opinions. Yes, it would. You're spot on. You are spot on. We're going to move on to the next topic, probably the final topic of the evening. Quite an interesting one. We'll see what the lads think of this. It's the ever-pressing Manchester United goalkeeping situation. Yeah, funny that, eh? So what we've got, obviously, we've got 3 number ones. Tom Heaton had a fabulous 45 minutes yesterday. You've got Dean Henderson, who ended the season as number 1, and you've got the ever reliable David De Gea. Has been a number 1 since he came in well over 10 years ago. So on the grounds of it, I'm going to go to Mark first because he'll be edging at this. The goalkeeping situation. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Who stays? And which goalkeeper do you think will start our first league game of the season against Leeds?
All 3, I think. I think the idea was to probably sell David De Gea. I think that the competition that Tom Heaton, and obviously he had a fantastic game, is healthy, as I said, at the very beginning. Listen, David De Gea, I love him. Obviously, he's been an incredible servant to the club. He's had some absolutely blinding games as a goalkeeper for United, some of the best I've ever seen. However, I think, and I have to be brutally honest, I do believe because that he started at such a young age, like you do see with players that start at such a young age. Rooney went downhill very quickly, okay, at really quite a young age, 29, 28, right? And I feel that he is unfortunately on the decline. Now, this doesn't mean get rid of him. This doesn't mean, it's not, I'm not trying to be negative at all. But what I feel that Henderson brings to our back 4 more than David De Gea is a bit of leadership, a bit of commanding ability. And I think that's really paid dividends since Henderson's been in. I think he's young, he's hungry. Listen, he was in goal for Sheffield United and had more clean sheets than David De Gea that season, right? The season before last, okay?
It's true, yeah.
Now, that says a lot for me. You think of a team for Sheffield United, they're more than likely going to have a lot of shots at them. And I think that's an incredible thing. I think that he really gives a lot more reassurance to the 2 men in the middle. I think Harry's improved. I think Lindelof's improved. I know there's question marks about who's going to partner Maguire, but I think that he's just more vocal. I don't believe David De Gea gives you enough of that, and that's why I think Ollie has decided to have Henderson and move him in. He signed a big contract. It was probably going to happen. And I think it's his time now. I think if he's fit enough, because he had a hip problem, didn't he, for England, he will be number 1 from the very beginning.
And you think, so on the grounds of that, you'll be saying in terms of August 14th versus Leeds, Dean Henderson starting in goal?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Before I come to you, William, on the back of that comment, Victoria's Secrets, I can't see any of the keepers leaving. Fair enough. I think Henderson will start as a number 1. The defence seem more confident with him in goal. I vouch for that. The confidence as well. The one thing he does do that De Gea doesn't particularly do is he runs out to challenges. He's not afraid to get off that line. He will have that commanding presence. There's no fear. But on the back of the questions that I just asked Mark there, William, so it's who do you see as the number 1 for Manchester United going into the season? And back on the goalkeeper situation, do you see any goalkeeper leaving? Or do you think, similar to Mark, all 3 will stay? What's your views on the goalkeeper situation for Man United as an Arsenal fan looking in?
Yeah, personally, I feel like unless one of the major teams drastically needs a new goalie, say Bayern Munich got an injury to Manuel Neuer, even though they have a great number 2, so they probably wouldn't even bother. But say one of those teams had a major injury to one of their goalies and they needed someone, they'd be like, oh, De Gea will probably be able to get sold. That's the only way I think it'll happen. But personally, I think all three of United's goalkeepers...
I'm just going to follow this last bit. So he says Lee Grant starts. Yeah, Lee Grant.
I'm afraid his job
is
finished. His job is finished. They no longer need him to hold up the number boards for the substitutions. I'm very sorry.
Exactly. We've got the proper officials back.
No, but honestly, I think all three do end up staying. And personally, I'd say it has been Dean Henderson's time. I think once he's gotten that number 1 jersey, there's no reason right now, unless his injury doesn't get better, for him to be dropped as that number 1 yet. I do think, look, he is a very good goalkeeper, but I do think he will have a few mistakes in him this season that will bring this debate up again a few more times. Like you say, how he often rushes out of goal to command the ball to be like a sweeper keeper. I think that will cost him 1 or 2 times. And every now and again, his positioning on some shots can be a bit dodgy as well. But do I think he's the finished article? No. Do I necessarily think that he'll be United's goalkeeper for a very long time? I'm going to be controversial and say no. With that, I think in about 2 or 3 years, you're going to be looking at someone else. But I do think that he should be your number 1. I think David De Gea is kind of past it. He'll put up some great competition in training, and there's no doubt that he can teach Dean Henderson a lot of things, because for them many years, he was the best goalkeeper in the world. And I even when I went to see Man United versus Arsenal in Old Trafford, and I had to sit in the Stretford end, let that be known. God help me. I even took a Snapchat at that time, and it was like best goalkeeper in the world. Ironically, he dropped a corner kick into his own net that day, and I believe that's kind of when the downfall started. So you can thank me for that, rival fans. But
sorry, we all remember the 31 saves.
Yeah, I do. It gives me nightmares. But honestly, I do think it's Dean Henderson's time, and you gotta give him that opportunity. Even if he makes that 1 or 2 mistakes, you've got to give him a chance to prove what he is.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he needs to be given the opportunity. He's what, 22, 23, so he needs to be given the lengths of first team football where it's not just any opposition as well. First game of the season, it's an old rivalry as Leeds. It's going to be thousands of fans at Old Trafford. There's going to be a huge atmosphere. Can he thrive under the pressure? That's what I'm looking forward to most. Like, it's a proper test for him. So we'll see where it goes from there in terms of the situation. I'm on the agree with you boys. I think neither goalkeeper's moving on. Ideally, the one that seems most likely would have been David De Gea. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it'll be next year. He may end up he could retire. I don't know. I don't think it's too early. I think it's too early for him to retire, but you never know. He may feel like he's done everything he wants to do. He could decide to walk away, which I don't have any issues with that at all, considering the fact he's been a servant since 2011, 2012, or the 2011-2012 season when he first came in. I would have no problem with that. And obviously, he's a 4-time Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year. No one at this club's done that. That just says all the high standards he employed over that 10-year period, where he was truly the only goalkeeper that could match him at the time was Manuel Neuer. For consistency, top level performances, club and country, and European football for the clubs, it's just unparalleled. It was just hard to combat it. Before we wrap up the show tonight, I'm going to come to one last quick fire topic that Mark will be a little bit intrigued by. There is talks, obviously we're waiting on Jadon Sancho being finally announced, but the main topic amongst Man United fans right now for subject is a certain Frenchman. It's not Pogba this time, it's Raphael Varane, the centre-back that Man United first wanted in 2011, funnily enough. We've waited 10 years to sign this bloke. Me personally, I want this done. He gives us everything we need. A serial winner, pace, experience at the top level, a world champion for his club and for his country. 28 years old. We could get 4 or 5 years beside Big Maguire as well as a cemented partnership. On the touch of this, Mark, if we do sign Raphael Varane, how confident would you be, both in terms of our defence, but in terms of us potentially challenging, not to potentially win the league? I don't know if we will. I think it'll be a little step too soon. But in terms of actually challenging Manchester City with a defence that screams Wan-Bissaka or Kieran Trippier, if that happens, Maguire, Raphael Varane, and either Luke Shaw or Alex Telles, depending on who we start with, Dean Henderson in goal, either option, how confident would you be in that backline? How confident would you be? And then I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, listen, it would be arguably one of the best back fours in the world. Harry Maguire has really shone through, and I've been backing him since day one. And he obviously during the Euros was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so pleased that United fans are starting to see this now. Luke Shaw, so proud of him as well. I've said this before, to come back from a double leg break, to go through all the shit that he had to with Mourinho is testament to him. And I think he's absolutely fantastic and is certainly playing that way at the moment. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I think he's a bit underrated going forward. And actually stats will tell you that actually going forward he's okay. And I think now that we've potentially got Jadon Sancho in, you'll see him go forward and overlap a lot more. And defensively, I think he's very good. Sometimes a bit questionable with his positional awareness, but other than that, pretty good for a very young right back. Now, Raphael Varane, obviously, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. He's not quite what I thought United would go for. I think that actually he's quicker than Maguire, but he's probably not as quick as I'd want him to be. But he is very good at one-on-ones, very good at pretty quick. And will probably bring the best out of Harry even more. And I do believe I worry sometimes with signings. You kind of get excited about a big name. He's a serial winner, as you said. But is he really going to come in and do what we need from that partner to Harry? Sorry,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Rachel's comment. William looks like he's having a
he obviously is talking about United, isn't he? Sorry, mate. I'll end this.
I don't worry. I don't worry.
Don't worry.
I feel that it would be a great signing, and for 40 million, 45 million, I think a great bit of business, as you say, serial winner, and looking like he actually wants to come to United, which is great to see. So yeah, it could be a fantastic back four, but I still think we need a CDM.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So, William, on the back of that, Arsenal have just signed an English defender for 50 million. Goes by the name of Ben White from Brighton. Imagine that Man United are going to sign a world-class centre-back for less than that. But on the grounds of this, and this is not a dig at Arsenal, but in terms of Varane to Man United, contrast to where you see Ben White at Arsenal, do you think there's something that Arsenal are missing as a centre-back of that opposition, or do you think Ben White's the right decision as Varane's correct for United?
Personally, the latter of what you said. I think that where Ben White suits us down to the ground and what we need is a ball progressing centre back. I think that Varane is the type of quality that Man United need in that back line to go alongside Maguire, a proven player at international and club level. That'll just increase the difficulty of playing against your back line tenfold. I'm sorry, Rach, you won't be getting to see too much more of Lindelof, but you never know. It could happen eventually over the cups. I had to go with it because of the comment.
To be fair, I like Lindelof, but I'll let you have that one.
Don't get me wrong, he isn't that bad, but there's no doubt that Varane and Maguire would be the best partnership. They're both two quality players. The one thing I will say, though, is we've never we have for France, but at least at Real Madrid, he has been sitting beside what you'd probably say is the best centre-back in the world, Sergio Ramos, for so many years. So you wonder now he doesn't have that type of player next to him. Don't get me wrong, Harry Maguire is great, and I do think he is more of a leader than people have ever given him credit to as well. I think that sometimes his mistakes is because he was trying to be too much of a leader and take it on himself and not give it away to other people. But then you're just going to see a bit of a difference, and he's got to get time to get used to the Premier League as well. Don't get me wrong, some people hit the ground running, but not necessarily. Like, he is going to be a big deal. It is going to take him a bit more time. But overall, I think it'll be a great signing for you guys, unfortunately. And your defense will look way too good. And I do think you'll also get Trippier, which will offer you way more options on that right-hand side as well.
So I'll get to Victoria's Secret's question in a minute, but I want to ask you both a question. Based on, obviously I mentioned I don't think we would win the league, but I think we would certainly be closer than 14 points. I think next season, I think we could be 5 to 7 points if we remain on a consistent run and Varane shows exactly why United want him. But looking in, if we were to get Trippier to work alongside Wan-Bissaka as a right back and we were to get Varane in, just instant reaction, it's up to you. Where do you see United next season in terms of league position or winning any silver? If you had to choose anything, like a split second reaction, what do you see happening? I'll start with you, Mark.
Listen, I don't want people to think I'm being too optimistic, but I think it will be a lot closer than 5 points. I think that we were the second best team in the league. I think Man City absolutely run away with it. But I honestly believe the recruitment this summer, and we need more of it. We're not going to sit on our hands now because they've done, well, hopefully so good so far. But I genuinely believe the players that Ollie is getting in, and we've seen this on a few occasions now, he seems to be getting the right players in. I honestly, if we can start well, and I know it's all about these sort of these nuances, but if we start well, we keep a little bit of consistency, which we did see long periods of. I really believe that we could be title challengers. I genuinely believe that.
How nice of you to join us. At least your internet's back. That's the more important thing. But no, you know what? To be fair, it's good to have a little bit of it's good to be that sense of optimism, but also at least you can back up with a sense of realism. Because obviously, consistency, the nuances, this has to happen. I'm going to come to William from an Arsenal fan looking in. On the flip side to Mark's comments, based on the question just asked, with the players that United are looking to sign, what do you see in terms of either league position or win a trophy? Or, in all fairness, we could, and I would hate to see it again, but we could go another trophyless season. I hope it doesn't happen, by the way. But what do you think could happen next year for United from an outside looking in?
Right. You've got all the bits, well, assuming that Sancho is done. That's done. It's not announced, but that's done. Right. Varane is basically done. You get Trippier. You're missing the DM. But if you got that in, then there is no excuses for you to not basically properly challenge and win the league. I just get this feeling that this is, and trust me, I rate Ollie, but I have a feeling this is going to be Frank Lampard at Chelsea once he's finally got all these players in, and there's that much scrutiny where you don't have the progression to hide. Like, you progressed each season. I just think it will be the season where he eventually goes and you finish about third or fourth, which, yeah, good, you get Champions League football, but it's not where you want to be. But then next season, you will properly challenge for the title and run them really close and or win it.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
Look, and I've got to say this, I do properly rate Ollie. He is a better manager than Frank Lampard, and it's not meant in any way of disrespect, but it's just he's progressed the team so very well in the time that he's done. Like, he's taken the from a very rough position into a place where he's been the perfect transition manager, and he's done everything you could ask for, and he does not deserve half the slander he gets.
It's true, because you look at when he came in as a caretaker, played 4-3-3. He didn't have the players then, but he still showed what he could work with players at the time. He's going 4-3-3, he's attacking, gets us sixth. He came in when we were sixth in the league and we finished sixth, but that's okay. Then we move. The following season, we get third. Then after that, we get second. There is levels of progression there, and also he's he always seems to get us to at least a semi-final, bar the FA Cup when we lost in the quarter-final stage to with Leicester. He has relatively good understanding of the cup competitions as well as the league. He manages games really well. He may not be the best manager in the world. We know that. But what he is, though, he is a man that recognises where he has to improve. He recognises the weaknesses in the team, and he is trying to ensure the team's position, whether he's the man to do the job. The one thing that's consistent amongst United fans that I've spoken to, I don't know about you guys, but obviously William being an Arsenal fan, is whether Solskjaer is the man to succeed or not, this club is in a better position long term because of the hard work he's doing, and he definitely deserves the credit for that. Sadly, by many United fans that have a parallel opinion, and they're entitled to it. Obviously, I cannot tell people what they can and cannot think. There's some fans that will refuse to give him that credit, and sadly, you cannot force people to change their opinions. You can't do that. They're entitled to it. But I just wanted to say, on the grounds of that Victoria's Secret spot on comment, Liverpool showed what signing of a world-class centre-back can do for a team. Yep, the sign of Van Dijk did ensure, sadly, that league title in the Champions League. Victoria's Secret also says have to win a trophy and still be in with a good chance of winning the league with a few games left. Yep, within a challenge at the end of the season would be great. Another comment before I get to a very important comment there. Maguire and Varane will complement each other's style of play so well. Can't think of a better partnership in the Premier League. The last time we had two top-class centre-backs was Vidic and Rio. Definitely. Furthermore, 21 and 22, let's go. And Keane, Ollie could win the quadruple, cure COVID, and achieve world peace, and they'd still shout Ollie out.
You know what? He's not wrong.
No.
He is not wrong. Well, before we wrap up the show tonight, I just wanted to say thank you to Mark and William for coming on and joining me this evening. Obviously, the original host couldn't make it. Her internet was dead. Bit like Liverpool's title defence last year. In the way, we're moving forward. We're going on. I just wanted to say as well, thanks to the guys that were tuning in. If you haven't, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button as well. Get the bell on. Notifications. The London Lowdown is here tomorrow at 7 o'clock, hosted by me. I'll be joined by Steve, talking all things Tottenham. That's going to be fun. But other than that, it's good night from me. Good night from Mark. Good night from William. This has been Devil's Advocate. This is the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. Good night.